And we have just hit record. So there's that. All right, let's see. We talked last time about automating stuff. And what else did we talk about?
Skills.
Oh, yeah, like adding to doing a daily skill thing. That's
Yep.
right. So we had daily skills and automation, and I'm trying to find a pencil here so I can like take a little scratch down a little note because I can't remember what it is. And then what's something we want to, what are some topics we want to think about here?
I thought we still had a few more out there. Let me pull up Slack. Podcast.
Mm,
There we are.
Things we want to do to get better.
Yeah, we already talked about security. So I think we covered the list that we had.
I want to talk a little bit about um, I forgot how to do it. Basically scheduling and calendar type stuff as far as like putting things on your like planning your week a little bit and putting like holders in place for stuff, and then probably even touch a little bit on like the whole GTD thing of like how to get through a week and like make sure that you like make sure you get your crap done and making sure that you've got a good list for what you need to do the next time around, stuff like that. I'm going to talk a
Yeah,
little bit
that'd be
about
a
that.
good one that followed the Pomodoro. God, why can't I say that right? Pomodoro
Yep,
technique.
got it, nailed it. We talked a little bit about it because we talked more about that was more about like just taking that 25 minutes, and that was one I think we did talk about maybe going into that, but we didn't follow up on it because we've done Pomodoro, we've done security awareness, automation. You
Kitchens.
happen to have you have the list up?
Yeah. So it was security awareness, Pomodoro, kitchen sink, automation, and improving code skills.
What was kitchen sink was
Building
oh,
like
building like your own, yeah,
yeah.
like a app or something like that, building your test app. All right. So I could do like a planning scheduling thing.
And that would kind of work good, not just because we could even work that into like the social media stuff for your business and things of that nature. Like, oh, what was that? Memberly, or what were some of those sites we used to use to do social media blasts?
Oh, what was the Owly people? Yeah, some of those guys. So yeah, we don't have to get into the tools because I don't even remember what they are right now, but that would be a good one. Um,
Then even automate, or you could we could even tie that into automation and kitchen sink. Write your own script to automate your schedule or automate scheduling things and things of that nature.
that I think goes like 6 levels too far. We
Oh,
want to do something that's like bite-sized chunks. So I'm thinking more along the lines of like for the next 7 days, have a list at the beginning of the day and a list and check it off at the end of the day or something along those lines. Something very simple, and then putting it into your calendar of some sort. And if you don't, have a calendar of some sort, like create a calendar of some sort. Um, I'm thinking with that. Um, I'm sort of thinking with that is sort of is do like a ticket tool kind of thing for personal use. It's more like your own roadmap and things like that, whether it's a big to-do list or whatever it is, but it's just basically like stepping into I sort of want to do like an incremental though. That's like a bigger thing. So planning scheduling is a good daily. Um That's another one that can do that would be a good daily one. That's not too bad though. I guess we could do something like that. That it's more of like transitioning that into a Jira board or Jira and doing personal sprints or use Trello or one of the billions of tools that are out there to just basically sort of like keep track of your stuff and put things into essentially have your own backlog as well. So maybe do like tickets, tasks.
Yeah, I was thinking Trello, something along that line, or like even like Microsoft Notes has that like task list or checklist.
Exactly. Yeah, something like that. So you just like knowing where you are. So the first one, sort of like one is like planning and scheduling, but then within that, sort of have that follow up is like, okay, well, where we are today? What am I doing today? What did I get done? What do I need to move? Yada yada, those kinds of things.
Yeah, I think
All
we
right.
touched on that briefly towards the end of last season, but I don't think we really got into it at all this season yet.
Yeah, I mean, we haven't. We're barely into it, so we haven't really talked about. We definitely have not talked about like having a daily. We got to figure out a challenge between now and when we get to that point, and what is our daily task going to be? So this one's going to be fun. We'll start with the planning scheduling thing. And my favorite three, two, uno. Well, hello and welcome back. We are continuing our season. We are building better developers. We're continuing the season of building better habits. And this episode, we're going to talk about a habit of the habits, I guess, of planning. We're going to sort of get into one focus this time. And the next episode, we're actually going to follow up and have almost like a 2-for-1 kind of combo little mini series within this. So this episode, we're going to look at that about planning, scheduling, and actually doing something besides just sitting there and saying, hey, I've got a crap load of stuff to do. Before you get into all of that, I have a crap load of like introduction stuff to do, which is, hey, I'm Rob Broadhead. I'm one of the founders of Developing or Building Better Developers, also a founder of RB Consulting, where we take all of that crap that's out there and all of that overwhelm and that technology sprawl, and we help you understand what you've got, where you need to be, and how to get there. So how to, through automation, simplification, integration, take all that stuff and turn it into something that is actually useful for you. Good thing, bad thing. In the world of good thing, bad thing, I have like my favorite of the good things is I had some customers that were a little slow on paying and they finally paid. I finally like got them over the hump. So that's a very good thing. Related to that, and a bad thing is that I had a vendor that had not invoiced for a while, and I'd totally forgotten that they needed to invoice me. So now I've got to like go make sure I do that and get all of that pushed through and build out to the appropriate people. I want to add something we're going to add in this season. Let's talk a little bit about what we have been going through with some of our past challenges. And so the there's two really I want to talk about is one is the coding challenge that I talked about. I have continued to do that, and it has been a very helpful for me to have something that what I did is I just like, hey, I want to get into an area of programming that I've heard about. It's a buzzy type, buzzword kind of thing, but it's something that I don't know a ton about, and I want to know more about it. So I go into a little deeper dive, and it has allowed me to like one learn more about this thing that everybody would is talking about, and two, it's actually a little different from my day job kind of stuff. Some of the stuff I'm working on a day-to-day basis, so it's actually refreshing to be able to change gears and do something that's not like under the gun or anything like that. The other one I want to talk about is the Pomodoro. I went through my first week of Pomodoros and struggled a little with them basically because I would get to the 25 minutes and I really usually needed about another 10 or 15. But I've kept this going and I've gone from on my to-do list, which we'll talk a little bit about this later. On my to-do list every day, I had one Pomodoro. And now I have two Pomodoros, which is sort of like, which I think is a really interesting approach to grow it. Is just that every day I'm going to have one that is we'll call it my day job Pomodoro. And then I have my side hustle Pomodoro. So it could be working in your business Pomodoro, working on your business Pomodoro, things like that. So it is making sure that I have at least, a half an hour each day of these two things that are, the driving forces of what I want to do career wise between side hustle and, main hustle and things like that. So those are my challenges. And the follow-up challenge for me is to now hand this over to Michael so he can introduce himself. So go ahead and introduce yourself, Mr. Michael.
Hey everyone, my name is Michael Meloche. I'm one of the co-founders of Developer Building Better Developers, also the founder of Envision QA, where we help small and mid-sized businesses automate, come up with testing software and other solutions to help improve their business software. Good and bad. Good. Um, I've actually, you were mentioning our challenges. I've actually made quite a bit of progress on kind of revamping my kitchen sink app, adding some new tools and some new features that I've kind of been lax in updating for a while. The bad side, I didn't realize that some of the tools and things I had were not necessarily outdated, but they were broken with some of the latest operating system updates. So I went through a bit of pain point trying to Google to figure out how the heck to fix command line environment issues again, which is always a pain in the ass. Uh, Although with the challenges though, I've been doing really good. Like you, I kind of did the daily Pomodoro. Uh, Biggest problem I have is if I tried to sit down in the evenings in blackout time, I totally lose track of time. Like I sat down one night, had was going to work for just 35 minutes. Next thing I know, it's 3 hours later. So I've got to really get a little bit better with my timers, especially once I found out that after a certain time, my phone is set to evening or so-called bedtime hours, and it turns off all your alerts. So I wasn't getting notified, so I just kept on working.
That does happen. All right. So I want to talk about planning and scheduling. And this is something that I have found um, a lot of developers, not a lot, there's probably a split of developers that struggle with this because they would rather just get in and get going and do stuff. And they don't really, they're just, some of us are just too scatterbrained or whatever that we don't really, sit down and think through some of the details and the bullet points that we probably need to be thinking through. But then there's the other side that is part of what we love because it is more of like mathematical kind of stuff where it's like you put a bullet down, you put a bullet point down, you get to check it off when it's done, things like that. When you get into a day, now we can talk about longer term stuff, but I want to really talk more about habitual type stuff, the kinds of things that are daily types of habit with your planning and scheduling. There are whole like libraries of books written on productivity and tools and approaches, and the one that I think most to some extent would apply to this would be GTD, Getting Things Done. The way he does it is way beyond anything I've ever done, but it may be something that's a very good fit for you because it does attack both daily stuff and then longer term things. On the daily stuff, I think the easiest way to start is to pick a number, probably like 3 to 5, somewhere like that. You may be as small as 3, or maybe you're an overachiever and you're going to say like 5. But every day, have a to-do list, and you can either do it at the beginning of the day, or you can write your to-do list for tomorrow at the end of the day, and put 3 to 5 items on there. Don't go to like 10 or 15 because you're going to overwhelm and you're never going to get it done. And if you only have 1 or 2, then you're probably just like you're underselling yourself. So somewhere in there. And these aren't things like brush your teeth, make your bed, and make a cup of coffee. And you're like, hey, I got them all done before I got out, like 5 minutes after I rolled out of bed. It's not that kind of stuff. These are things that you want to accomplish in the day. Now, one of the things that you want, it should be actually at the top, is the thing that you least want to do. You need to get it done, but you just don't you dread it. You do not look forward to it. It's called eating the frog. And you will thank yourself if you can regularly find a chore, a task, a to-do item for your day that you don't want to do, but you need to get it done, because just like day in and day out, getting those things knocked out is amazing how satisfying that is. And it doesn't sometimes take too long before you're like, there's not really anything out there that I dread. And so your day suddenly becomes sunshine and roses until the next dreadful task appears. So you want to sit down and you want to take these tasks and you want to think of them when you're putting them in your mind, sort of when you're designing the task or defining the task, is it's probably something that's going to take you, a couple hours maybe. Typically, if you're going to do 3 to 5 items, the items should be no more than roughly 1 to 2 hours apiece. Or maybe if there's a bigger one that's going to take you half a day, then the other two, pick some smaller tasks. The goal in doing this is to have a an amount of things to do that are comprehensible to you, that are easy for you to keep in mind. Ideally, you create your list and you can off the top of your head, that list the rest of the day because it's a small number. It's not 15 items. It's a shopping list, except for when you're just going to grab like a couple of things for that recipe that you need. That's why we write them down, because we know if you've ever done that, you have forgotten one of the items at least on the recipe that you need and you have to go back out. I digress. What you want is to have that thing that you really dread doing. And then you want a couple of things that are well defined. So you know when you're done. You don't want something where it's like, it could take a couple of days. And if it's something that isn't going to have a well defined stopping point, then define it down to a well defined stopping point. So instead of, for example, like I need to create a class to deal with customers and all of their account stuff. Well, like, what can you get done today? So think of it more like, okay, I'm going to do the basic structure of that and a couple of getters and setters or something like that. Adjust your to-do list, because your goal, and this is we'll say for your workday, basically. Now, it may be that your workday is like, for example, a hustle and a side hustle. You can tack on maybe, 1 or 2 extra tasks where it's that 3 to 5 tasks for your primary day, we'll call your 8-hour workday. And then 1 or 2 that are your half day or whatever it is that you do after that. Now, the key to this is those tasks that you define for your day. If it's an 8-hour day, they should probably be aiming for about a 6-hour day, that you could get them done in 6 hours. If you try to fill it to that 8 hours, you're almost always going to miss. You're going to end up stressed. You're going to have all kinds of stuff because stuff happens. Life gets in your way. You end up oversleeping. You spend too much time at lunch, whatever it is. Get yourself a manageable list. And I'll save what the challenge is with this, but like, as I'm going to pass this over to Michael, as we thinking about that, is like, what does that kind of thing look like? And it's something that you probably will struggle with a little bit initially, because I think we under and overestimate ourselves all the time. We overestimate what we can do. We underestimate and overestimate what tasks will take, particularly the ones we hate. I don't know how many times the things that I dreaded forever, because I was like, that's going to take me a day, took me half an hour. And I was like, why did I wait so long to do that? Now, I'm going to allow you guys to wait so long while I pass this over to Mike. I'll let you talk a little bit about task and your approach to this, and then we'll come back and talk about the challenge for this episode.
Sure. So in the past, incidentally, I've kind of mentioned this before. So in my daily routine, what I typically like to do is I'll take a sheet of paper and fold it 5 or 6 times till it's about a little bit smaller than an index card. And I'll sit down and I will write down what I need to get done for the next day, or for that day if I didn't get to it the day before. By doing it this way, it forces me to keep a small list of things to do so I don't overfill my day. The other key to that is don't write small, write normal. You're only looking for 4 or 5 tasks that you want to get done in the day. Now, these tasks could be multiple tasks in one. And by that, I mean, one of the things Rob mentions is always try to get that thing out of the way that you least like to do. Well, one of the things I least like to do is pay bills or deal with financial information. That's not my cup of tea. So what I've actually done is, in the past, I found myself constantly checking my bank statements daily. So now what I've done is not only have I organize this down into a daily task. But what I've done now is I've batched it, and like every Friday on my to-do list is reconcile my accounts. So I go out, I check all the registers. So now instead of a task that took me 5, 10, 15 minutes a day, I now moved it to the end of the week. It takes me maybe a half an hour and I can do it all at once. It's the least thing I like to do. I know it's one day a week and I knock it out quickly. The other thing, as Rob mentioned, is if you have these large tasks or these large projects that you're working on, one of the things you need to be careful of is breaking them up in such a way so that you don't leave them in progress when you end your day. Or you're at the end of the day and, oh, I think I can get it done. And you work into the night because you're stuck working on a task. When you get to the end of your day or the last task on your list, make sure you are at a stopping point. Make sure that you are done for the day. One of the biggest problems I have is if I have not reached that point and I'm at like an indeterminate state on a problem, I may carry that with me when I walk away from the computer. It gets stuck in your mind. It's like, oh, I really need to get that done. What do I need? You don't want that. So that's one of the things about keeping track of this to-do list that you can do to really not only simplify your daily task and keep it organized, but you also lower your stress level. Because if you get rid of those tasks that you least like to do quickly, as Rob said, it's a snowball effect. Then it's like, oh, that's out of the way. Cool. Now I can get back into the things I like to do. And I actually find it fun sometimes to kind of stagger your tasks. So start out with the worst thing, the thing that you really don't want to do, and then do something you want to do next, like something that you really like to do, but maybe it's a small task. And then you do kind of a medium task in between that, and then maybe another easy task, maybe another larger task. So it's not just a matter of stacking what you need to get done in a day. It's also how you order your to-do list for how you're going to accomplish this. The last thing I want to mention is as you're organizing or as you're listing out these tasks, make sure that, like I said before, you put common tasks together. So you kind of batch these common threads of work, because by doing that, you also stay in the same mindset as you're working through your tasks. So, like if you're working on building a particular component of an application, one task could be, okay, build the database. Second piece, add the repository piece to your application to talk to the database. So you kind of stagger the order of operations of things. By doing that, you really make it easier because you start out in the right path. Whereas if you start out with the front end, here, build the GUI for it. Oh, I'm missing all these things I didn't think about because I didn't have the database yet. You've doubled your work. So also look through your tasks as how you're putting them together to make sure that you're doing them in the right order so you're not having to go back and do double work.
There's a couple of things there. The first one is actually, I just lost both of them. So the first one is always pay attention to what you are focused on. For what the thing that you're going to do. Don't look down. This is a good example. Do your tasks asynchronously, or I'm sorry, synchronously, like serialized, 1, 2, 3, not in parallel, not asynchronous. And make sure that you know how to speak before you do like a speaking task, like, I don't know, do a podcast or something like that. Um, the breaking stuff down, I think that's one of the best benefits of, besides just the endorphins of like, hey, I got something done, and being able to say, I'm done when you get your stuff, which is a challenge, but it is actually very important. For example, if you go to a place and eat dinner and they give you a plate of food and you finish your plate, you are done. If you end up in a place that's an all you can eat and you keep going back and adding stuff, you are going to eat too much, most likely. It's sort of the same thing. It's like, let's make sure that we are right sizing our tasks for our day. And I think it goes back to that whole idea of like doing them in order. thinking about those and enough that you're like, okay, this is roughly what I'm going to do and how long the time block I'm going to take is going to force you to think about it a little bit. So if you're like, well, I'm just going to start on my new app. Well, you're going to have to take a minute or two to say, well, what does starting on my new app look like? Am I going to build a database? Am I going to write a user story? Am I going to am I do a clickable demo? Am I going to do, a HTML page? Am I going to build CSS? Whatever it is. What is it am I just going to go register a code repository and do a first commit? Those things. It it forces you and allows you to step into your day not in chaos because now you're not improvising it. You have a plan. And yes, it takes a little bit of time, but it's really not much. It's like 5 or 10 minutes, maybe, to sit through there and think through it. I go every day, like crank through my stuff. I can do it in, I don't know, I probably spend less than a minute. And there are my tasks that are important. And then there's all these other little ancillary things. It's like, oh yeah, I got to do this. It's the laundry list stuff of like, oh yeah, don't forget to send this email. Don't forget to do that thing. They're not really the tasks. They are tasks in themselves, but they're all those little tiny things that were like, oh yeah, don't forget to pay the bill or something like that. That I knew if I vamped long enough, I would come back to one point. The There is a different thing that we can look at that is how he handled his bills. And it's honestly, it's exactly the same way I do it. It is Tim Ferriss when he talks about getting mail. That's how he does it. There are certain things that you don't need to do every day. And those things may be better candidates for a different approach, like a weekly list or something like that. I don't want to get out of the scope of this, but that's one of the things we probably will talk about. Actually, I know we will talk about later is more like the longer term stuff. This is very tactical. And so we're talking about your day. So challenge wise, for the next 7 days, because that's how challenges work here, I want you each day to start, whether it's the beginning of the day or the end of the day before, put down 3 to 5 tasks. I would challenge you to pick a number and do that number of tasks each time for the next 7 days. Put the one, and you can prioritize them, which would be even better. That's bonus points. We'll send you a virtual smiley face or whatever the heck it is when you do that, because you want to have the thing that you dread the most, the thing that's on you. Look at the items on your list, and the one that you least want to do, boom, put that to number one. I don't care, and they may all be pretty close, but whatever you want least, put that at the top, because when you get that done, the rest of your day is going to be better because the crap you didn't want to do, you already got it done. So it's like, hey, smooth sailing after here. Do that for the next 7 days. And I do mean 7 days, not just business days, because I think it is very valuable for us to take this same skill and approach into our personal days. Now, I'm assuming that you work 5 days a week and you take 2 days off. If you work 7 days a week, sucks to be you. There's not much we can do about that. But if you take 6 days, you got a day off, on your off days, when you are off, when you're not working your main job or whatever it is, still do this. Because it may be stuff that's like, I don't know, mow the yard or get a haircut or whatever the heck it is. But keep the momentum of building that habit. And also it is practice. It is really good practice because you start figuring out a little bit more, assessing things better. Like, what kind of a task is this? How should I break this task up? Some of those skills that are actually very valuable, particularly if you're starting out and you're moving into, as you move into a mid-level senior advanced architect type role in the software world, you have to be able to do these mental exercises. Another mental exercise you have to do is you have to send an email to info@developreneur.com because you need to give us feedback, because we love to hear that. Particularly, you can make that at that last day. Maybe that's your first priority on day 7 is to send an email that says, I have gotten into my 7th day and I got 6 days in a row behind this and this is now my 7th day. I've completed my list, because that means you're well on your way to starting a habit. And that, coincidentally, is exactly what this season is all about. So shoot us an email. If not that, you can reach out to us. You can leave us comments on wherever you get your podcasts. On YouTube, you can go to developreneur.com. We've got a contact form. We've got all kinds of crap out there, all these ways for you to get a hold of us, and also to take a look at all of the content that we have out there, whether it's past episodes of this, the podcast itself, blog articles, mentor class, all kinds of stuff that we've done over the years. It's all out there. It's not super easy, but if you do like a couple of those searches, you can find the topic you need most likely. That being said, I'm going to let you get on to that. Go get that list made. Go out there, have yourself a great day, a great week, and we will talk to you next time. Bonus material.
So one of the things I challenge you not to do is do not go list happy. Do not pick up an app and just go, here, I'm going to use this. Apps for to-do lists are good once you have good habits in place for using them. More often than not, I see people pick a to-do list and they just fill it up with hundreds of things. And it's like, next day, it's like, oh my God, I have too much to do. No, keep your list small. And for now, for this initial task, write it on a sheet of paper, little note card, whatever. Keep it short. Once you get those habits established, then move on to more technology-wise apps that are out there. And the other thing I'd throw out there is, as you're working through these tasks, figuring out what your to-do list is going to be, keep an eye if you see any patterns. So if you find that, like I said, if you end up like checking your bank statements or reconcile 5 days a week, if you find you're spending 10, 20, 30 minutes doing that, and then you go to something else and you got to come back and try to figure out what you're doing, try doing it maybe every other day or twice a week. Batch it up a little bit and see if that doesn't improve your processes a little bit, and also keep your mind focused on what you're doing instead of all this constant shifting back and forth.
I guess those are good points and great things for our bonus material. I'm going to actually throw a little curveball on this and say that what you could do is, for your technology challenge of where you're trying to build something, where you're trying to like automate something, is you could create yourself like a little spreadsheet or little like super simple, like, I don't know, an Access app or something like that, something where and it really should be, like Michael said, don't make it too easy for yourself to just blow out a huge list of tasks. Ideally, and this may be something maybe a product idea I have that comes to that, is like where you can only put X number of items there every day, and then you look at them when they're done, and you can even set something up that rolls it over to the next day or something like that. You can, there's a lot of stuff you can do there that I think would be useful for a technology kind of challenge, because it's a very simple app and you could do it in whatever you wanted to do it in. As an example, I did almost the exact thing of this a couple of years ago when I wanted to play around with React. So I created a React app, and it was all for keeping track of tasks and stuff like that. The other thing is what Michael sort of alluded to, is automation. Is that maybe as you're going through these tasks, building these tasks each day may be helpful for you to do that automation challenge that we talked about, because now you have a roadmap, you have a history, you have an audit trail of what did you do, and you can look back at it and go, well, where did I spend my time, or why do I keep doing this, and maybe find an automation solution to that. That being said, we're going to wrap it up for this one. We will come right back, as far as you know. Actually, I guess not as far as you know. As far as we know, we're going to come right back. As far as you know, it may take years before you come back to this, but please don't, because that's a long time to work on that challenge. As always, check us out every Tuesday and Thursday. We drop new episodes. We are going to continue to do this for quite a while. I think we're about 4 or 5 episodes in, and we've got a long way to go in this season. So as always, if you have some suggestions or recommendations, since you're watching this, you know that we wing it. We step right into that. We're like, what the heck are we going to talk about? So the door is wide open for recommendations from all of you guys. Feel free to throw that out there. If there's a habit that you have created and that you would love for us to like share that with the greater developer world, or if there's a habit that you want to work on that you would love for us to like throw some sort of a challenge out, that is awesome as well. So go out there and have a good one, and we will talk to you next time.